Okay, I see Facebook, see YouTube. I don't see Twitch, but you know what? I'm okay with that. I have no idea what's going on with Twitch, or not just Twitch, but with Discord and everything. Well, in fact, let me get the Discord up. One more second. Yeah, hi to anybody who's crazy enough to have clicked on this thing. Yeah, funny, my D Live seems to work, but Twitch just doesn't. So anyway, this video I just wanted to make real quick because it's kind of a bummer. I was listening to the latest Talk Heathen, and you know, I had just told one of the ACA guys the other day that it is unreal. Like, you know, I had my doubts at first or whatever, but V and Eric work so well together. Like, they just as a team, they just annihilate stupid stuff, but they usually drill down into the really interesting things that you really want to hear. But unfortunately, this time, it seems like, I don't know, it just got kind of, I seen, I don't want to call it bullying, but what, I don't know how to just kind of steer things in a weird way. Let's see, it's happened. The team, they just annihilate call and it's stupid stuff, but they usually drill down into the really interesting things that you really want to hear. Okay, so that's all going good. So what this one was it's actually something I'm really interested in. It was about how do instincts get encoded into you know, DNA or genetics. You know, how does that work? I'm gonna play this. Listen, I got a fair use sticker up for a reason, just in case anybody goes crazy. This is just, you know, this is definitely transformative. I'm commenting on this, so please keep that DMCA crap out of here. So let me play what the guy's asking.
Do you know of any, good science that shows how DNA can encode for the probably trillions and trillions of neuronal connections that create our psychology and how our brain works and all of these things?
So the guy's asking, and this, I really think this is a fascinating question, and I've asked it so many times, and I don't care if you're a creationist or you're a Hindu or you're an atheist or whatever. To me, this is a really interesting question. And yeah, I don't know that it really gets answered here, and it's a real bummer because I don't know that Daryl Ray is actually the guy to answer this. But let's see what happens here.
Yeah, the research on this goes back a minimum of 100 years with early research on just watching the brain development of other animals. And what we saw in rats, mice, even worms, nematodes, is the development of the connections of neurons over time as the fetus or the animal develops in utero and later. So we've got a pretty good idea of how the brain connects the neurons, and then that's kind of level number one. It's just the biology, and we know that the DNA programs all that, and you can disrupt the DNA if you disrupt.
Look, I don't want to get nailed, but I'm playing this kind of long because I want this to be taken in context. Okay.
The DNA, the neurons will not connect. You know, it's just like if I switch the light off, the lights go off. It's pretty simple. In DNA, when you talk about DNA, you have to really get down a little bit. It's not just DNA.
And you know, I don't want to skip ahead because I don't want you guys accusing me of taking stuff out of context. I don't think that any of this really is even beginning to address the question. I realize you got to lay a foundation for what how brain works and how biology works and stuff, but yeah, I don't know. Let me check something.
In DNA, when you talk about DNA, you have to really get down a little bit. It's not just DNA.
And you know, I don't want to skip ahead because I don't want you guys accused. Yeah, I don't think this is answering. Let me play this back.
DNA is the way is the book that holds the instructions. And inside of that book are 22,000 or more instructions just for humans. And there's other every animal has its book of instructions. And if you tear one of those pages out for that instruction, mutate it, destroy it, that's a gene. And the gene is within the DNA. So I hope I'm not going too far off for you, but there's a lot.
I think that's too far off. I don't think this is it at all. I'll get to it after we get through this a little bit. I'll get to why I really think about this. Anyway, let me keep playing this.
Lots of ways to encode these things, and we know they encode in very specific ways because we've disrupted it. We've turned the light out and seen what happens. What happens when you turn off the serotonin gene? What happens? Well, serotonin stops being.
Yeah, this is really a general biology talk about the way brains work. This guy is asking how like, I mean, it's an amazing thing to really. I want you to think about that. Go out and observe some behavior of animals and think about that. How do they know what they're doing? And let me leave you with this thought while I play some more of this. Is ants? Think about ants. Okay.
Manufactured inside the brain of the organism. And oh, by the way, all mammals create serotonin just like we do. Does that answer a little bit of your question?
Yeah.
No.
It kind of does. I think the understanding that DNA encodes for proteins is, we have a pretty good grasp on how that works.
Mm-hmm.
But what I'm not getting is how encoding for a protein can encode the patterns of neuronal connections to create these things that the brain's able to do. For instance, when any creature is born, it has to have and I don't think we even.
All right, so I don't know. Maybe he's not. I think he just re-clarified and steered back to where it was that he's trying to ask. He's asking, again, like I think I'm saying it. How he's asking, how in the world he's assuming that instincts are made by certain neural pathways being connected or whatever. I think that's how we understand how memory works. I mean, and I know this isn't the same thing because it's not a memory. It's not something you actually remember. And I'm trying not to get Lamarckian here, but instinct to me is as if there's a memory of what I should do based on this or that circumstance. And that's what he's asking. How in the world do you encode the equivalent of a memory onto the DNAs in that it's passed on from one generation to the next? I know in some animals, actual culture is created. And in that case, if the parents don't give it to the kids, like if they don't teach it to them while they're alive, the culture dies. In Florida, there's some dolphins that fish a certain way. I think you can go from neighborhood to neighborhood here in Hawaii and observe birds that act completely different than each other, even though they're the same species. They've managed to exploit a certain resource or not. Let me go on here, and the reason I'm kind of harping on this is this. I don't know. I look. Listen, I am all for free speech and stuff, but I think there's been some kind of tone trolling kind of going on lately. Let me keep playing this here.
Understand how the patterns create, how does the neuronal pattern create a thought or a memory or an instinct? I think as far as our understanding goes, we kind of know the regions of the brain that does certain things. We know where the visual cortex is or the area of the brain.
Again, I'm not playing this because I want you guys to DMCA me. I'm playing this so that you don't accuse me of taking this out of context. I'm just playing what he's saying.
That, produces speech, but I don't think we really understand how a certain, neuronal connection pattern can create, like I say, a thought, a memory, an instinct, these types of things. But like
he said instinct
when a creature's born, it has in its brain all of these centers that can do these things. It has a visual cortex that's pre-programmed. You know, humans have the ability for language and music and speech and you know, smells and all the.
He's kind of rambling, but there are certain animals that know which foods to eat and which foods not to eat that don't have parental care. Some animals are lay 'em and forget 'em, and if you watch like the breeding behavior of like stag beetles or whatever, they know to walk up to each other and put on a certain display. There's kinds of flies that fly up to each other and do patterns and dances and things, and that's kind of the instinctual thing. Like he's asking, you know, is that encoded onto the brain through DNA? I mean, I don't know any other way unless you're talking about Lamarckian stuff.
All the muscle controls and the organ controls, and what my point is, then there are.
Let me just skip ahead
of
here.
Neuronal connections.
So Jamie, I'm going to jump in here real quick because
I just got one last quick sentence on it.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
Here's the thing. Like, listen, callers. This is. I know. If I were V or Eric, I'm surprised they don't just jump out of their seats. It's like you got to keep talking for some reason. Why? V wants to ask something here, and you just kind of keep blabbing. Like you gotta keep blabbing. You gotta listen with your ears, man.
Can't find any research on how just encoding a protein.
Okay, so I'm going to let Daryl talk about the actual process of creating neural pathways because that is definitely something he is more comfortable than I am talking about. My concern, though, is that we got this with RJ before and we're getting it with you now. The argument seems to be, I don't understand something, therefore I'm going to try and smuggle in a proposition that I think explains it. And
okay, you know, this may be the case. Look, and you guys get nailed all the time, so you're probably trying to nip this kind of stuff off in the bud. But honestly, he never said anything about that. You're just gonna go assuming like you know, a lot of you guys get very upset when the principle of charity isn't applied here, and you know the concept of steel manning stuff is kind of important. But the part that kills me, it's not. Maybe he's going to pull that, but listen, we got this Dr. Darrell Ray on here who might be able to explain this. This is something I really want to know. This isn't about religion or origins or whatever. This is a very fascinating part of biology. I really wanted to learn, and here's a guy who potentially could answer it. And what do we got here?
That I want to cut to the chase here. I appreciate that you want to have just a conversation about it. I don't want to get aggressive. That's absolutely fine. But you're a theist, correct?
I am.
Okay, and you're calling into an atheist show that asks for proof or evidence of God, and you're talking about how it looks like. You know, you use the phrase "built." You know, we're built in this way.
You know, okay. You know, it's like I said, V. You may be 100,000% right that this guy he's about to pull a Darth Dawkins gotcha on everybody. But I don't care. Like, I really don't care. I'm so mad. Man, I just I really want to know this is such an incredibly. I asked this. I'm constantly asking this question. Like, how exactly does this happen? This is something I really. And here's a guy who we finally have access to. He might be able to answer this question. This is killing me.
Which I picked up on, don't think that slid through. And you're presenting these things as if, I'm assuming it's going to lead eventually to a God claim. And I'm concerned about that because that's not how it works. We don't get to say whether or not we understand exactly how neural pathways are made. We might not. Daryl will have to back me up on one or the other there. Regardless, even if we were like, you know what, it's a complete mystery. We have
Now listen, I can't stand tone trolls. I can't stand them. I'm a little worried lately about some of my people I look up to, and I will call them heroes. And I don't care if you don't like that, Matt Dillahunty, but you are often a hero of mine. Too bad. I know that heroes are flawed, and you're still my hero. So too bad. But I am seeing Now, you guys, hopefully some of you remember, I defended you to the death against tone trolls back in the day when I think freedom of speech was a little bit more important to this organization. And you guys took some crap about maybe you said things the wrong way that might hurt some theist feelings or whatever. And I said that, the truth doesn't care about your feelings. If I drop a rock on my foot, I don't care about how the rock feels as it falls through the air. It's still going to hurt my foot when it hits me. Right? I mean, that hurt happens through truth. Sorry about that. But let me see how this goes.
No idea how this happens. That does not get us any closer to a God claim at all, especially a specific God claim. So my question is, why are you calling in with this particularly? Is this what convinced you that there was a God?
Now, I like this question. See, because especially if you go and listen to the Darth Dawkins and all the philosophical people out there with their ontologically, teleological, kalamological arguments and whatever, that's not where they came to their beliefs from, was from some kind of crazy argument like that. They came from it from someplace else. And V is absolutely spot on right here with this with this question. But I don't think we don't know that he was asking this. I don't think, this just seems like, I'm sorry, it kind of seems like bullying for no reason. But I know you guys are I'm not allowed to use that word on other people, but.
The creation and the complexity of life was probably about a 50% factor that convinced me. The reason why I called in is I came across your channel today and I saw that you had a doctor psychologist on there, and I wasn't really thinking that we were calling in to make God claims with.
Yeah. Okay. So maybe you can say sorry or whatever. I'm not sure if that's what's going to happen, but listen, this is really fascinating stuff to people. And whether you like it or not, there are tons and tons and tons of people out there still struggling with their beliefs. And something that really holds on to is actually the incredibly complex world that's out there. I can see why. I have empathy. Like sometimes I think people just lose all their empathy. They pretend to take offense at on other people's behalf all the time. Oh, I'm going to be offended for you. Don't say that. That's offensive to somebody else. But really have some empathy for people who are confused, because this is a hard one. This is a really hard one. When you look out at the world, I know you guys hate the look at the trees argument because it's silly, but this is one of those things where you're saying like, wow. One of the ones I know, one of the ones you see really hard is the praying mantis that whose rear end looked exactly like a rose or an orchid or something. We know how you can get there. That one is actually a little bit easier than this. This is a very, very difficult thing. This guy said he called in because he saw you guys had a psychologist on here. This is a guy that might be able to answer. And he didn't call in with any gotchas. Early on, he didn't do any gotchas either, which is usually the sign. Like you hear these guys, man, like your RJ today. You know when this is coming. This guy sounded. There's nothing wrong with being curious, and I think a lot of times, I'm living in the left hook of the Bible Belt, and you want to talk religious. I know you guys think you got a monopoly on it over there, but it's a slightly different type over here, but the foundations are not fundamentally different. And they see very strange things especially in the ocean here. And they'll ask me about it. Like, why is this thing this way? How could it have gotten this way? And they're curious. There's nothing wrong with being curious. And he's saying he's curious. He's asking this guy.
Him, I thought it was more kind of, discussing those types of, psychology. And I'm always more interested in the, physiological aspects of that. So that's why I called in. And I'm calling in, like I say, I prefaced it that I am a creationist or, a theist or a creationist, but I wasn't necessarily trying to make a convincing argument on that factor. I just recently, like I say, been trying to find any studies or science on how encoding DNA can actually come up with, neuronal patterns for these, like I say.
Yeah, we're still assuming it's neuronal patterns that do this. I mean, it's could be. I mean, that's very likely. But I mean, it sounds like this guy's curious, man. And you guys, cut him off at the knees.
Trillions and trillions of things, and I just can't come up with anything that I've been finding.
Well,
I was wondering if he knew of some of the research on that more specific.
Yeah, and so this is where I always ask, because, me, it's always the religious claims about mic preamps and guitar tone wood or whatever, where I'm really hammering on people. Where's the research? Let me see the research. What do you got? Show me what you got, right? And so that's what he's asking. Is there any research out there on this? I'd like to know too. I've done for years. I've been doing searches. I get some little answers from time to time, but I never really get very much good. And I kind of don't know how to ask the question, which is a big part of the problem. And man, this is such an opportunity here.
Specifically, how that actually functions,
Okay, Daryl, how do you want to address?
Well, let me. I don't know if you're into construction. I build things occasionally. How do you get a roof on a house?
You hire a crew and they come and put the roof on. A lot of hard work and sweat and equity.
Okay, well, you left out a whole bunch of stuff there. First thing, you have to build a foundation. Then you have to frame up the house.
Hey, man, you guys, okay. Man, I'm going to get nailed for this. To me, this sounds like apologetics, man. I mean, just this is not what he's asking.
House. Then you got to structure the house. So there's a whole lot of things that go in before you put the roof on. And what you came into the show and said, I want to understand how the roof got on there, but you haven't looked at all the previous developmental stages the organism had to go through before the neurons even started getting connected.
How do you know that? He didn't. No. That's a hell of an assumption, Dr. Ray. I mean,
So let's go straight to the roof. And if we go straight to the roof, I mean, assuming that there's got to be a lot of developmental stages an organism goes through before the brain even starts clicking.
But it seems like in most adult creatures, they have such similarities that there's a foundational structure that's built in. I will say built in to them when they're developing, an embryo. That stuff actually is encoded and created, encoded into it. We all kind of have, similar psychology. Otherwise, if it was just kind of like a random building out process as we develop it, we would just, I don't think we would have such similarities in our, psychology. And
yeah, what he's really asking, I mean, it's really hard not to get Lamarckian here. I'm thinking of what do you call it, like a gazelle? When a gazelle's born, it's got to be ready to run, and right away. And that's at the most basic level. I mean, this isn't talking about like knowing what food to eat or again, something like ants or bees. It's so hard not to get this Lamarckian idea here.
It's like we're all related on some kind of tree that goes back to just a few organisms.
That's snarky and haha, but that really doesn't address at all what this guy's asking. That this guy's probably okay accepting that we come from a tree or more like a bush of life, but that's not what he's asking here. This is to me, again, I keep saying it's a very fascinating, very specific question here.
Jamie, I appreciate you calling in, and I think that if this is something that is going to convince you one way or the other that a God exists,
it's had nothing to do with it. But like I say, there's plenty of people who this is a real sticking point for them. And if I'm sorry if you don't think so. I can understand. I can feel it.
Definitely worth doing more research on. I do want to make some room for callers who do want to talk specifically about the God claim. But if you do think you have a God claim that you'd like to discuss with us, feel free to call back next week.
And go find a good book on neuropsychology. You'll probably learn a lot.
Okay, that's I mean, the best we can say here is let me Google that for you. I mean, that's the response. I'm bummed because this was kind of, we're kind of looking forward this week with Dr. Ray. Man, what a question. So one of the reasons I get so crazy about this, I mean, some of you guys know I spent a lot of time in the desert. There was actually, in the town that I was living in, there was a Burger King drive-through. Okay, this is amazing to me. There's a Burger King drive-through that, as you went through the drive-through, it was situated on the edge of the wilderness in such a way that two very rare, for me, very rare desert lizards were putting on a mating dance. They're fighting over some nearby females, or showing off to them anyway. And they really had this whole elaborate ritual of what they were doing, and it's just amazing to think. And I would always think about that. How do they know? Like how does that get encoded into their? I don't know if it's proper to say encoded into their DNA, but how are these instincts passed on? These aren't. How are these instincts passed on? It's just it's an amazing thing to me. But yeah, like I say, like ants, man, like ants know what to do. I don't know what to say. I know I'm anthropomorphizing by saying no, but they really have some specific behaviors that they do. And I can get this. Like, let's say that 10 babies were born, and one of them decided that it would be a good idea to eat green fruit in its location, and it turned out that particular green fruit kills you, and the other 9 didn't eat it, and they were more likely to pass on their genes. But even still, what is that a thing? Is that stored in the DNA? Like, so that's not Lamarckian, because they already were predisposed not to eat that red fruit, or it could be the other way around. It could be that one of these guys decided that red fruit was a good thing to eat, and that's the one that lived. Or not decided, like his genetic makeup predetermined that he would want to eat that red fruit. I mean, I can get there from just so stories, but I don't understand where it's encoded. Is it actually part of the DNA that you're going to behave this way? Is it, we really get into all this deterministic stuff. It's such a fascinating question. I'm so bummed I didn't get to really hear an answer to it. Such a bummer. And the only reason I'm sure that this happened, because this is how magic works, is that I had just said that you guys work so great together. And I got to get kicked in the shins for that one. But anyway, that's just a minor rant, but I'm really bummed. But you guys keep going, because you guys are doing awesome stuff. So I'll talk to you guys later.